Hi there, John Glory here. Welcome to the A Plus podcast. In today's podcast, which is titled A Cry Behind Closed Doors, Confronting the Reality of Rape or Defilement. In today's podcast, I'm joined by Mwiza Musuma, who is a final year public health student at CBU. He's the membership engagement lead at the A Plus Student Foundation. He was also the former debate president at CBU School of Medicine. He's an STG advocate, a volunteer at Lead Me Back Foundation and White Rose Foundation, currently serving as the organizer general of MCF, and a mental health matters movement projects director. Also, I'm joined by Maisha Nyirenda, who is a third year MBC HP student. She's the podcast marketing specialist at the A Plus Student Foundation podcast. She also serves as a publicity director at Mental Health Movement, which is also at CBU School of Medicine. She's a mental health advocate, and it will interest you to know that she's also a social worker and has been involved in quite a number of outreach programs to orphanages, schools, and the likes. Also, we are joined by a very surprise guest who happens to be Margaret Mwenitete. Margaret is a fourth year MBC HB student, currently rotating at NTH. She's an STG advocate, a peer educator trained by Society for Family Health. She also attended the Girls Light Award Camp, where she has learned valuable information on sexual and reproductive health. All right, let's dive into the conversation. Now, when we look at today's topic, of course, looking at the cry behind closed doors, confronting the reality of rape or defilement, I think one thing that really draws a lot of people to, this whole conversation is the title itself, The Cry Behind Closed Doors. Mwiza, what comes to your mind? The cry behind closed doors.
Okay, so thank you very much. Firstly, before I answer your question, it's quite a delight to be a part of this podcast, and seeing that your question that you posed to me is what I think on what a cry behind closed doors means. This is trying to echo or voice out how this is something hidden. It's not something that's been exposed to the human eye. It's a silent epidemic that people are fighting day in and day out. Families are crying, and the attention that it deserves is not being given to it. Yes.
Wow. I like how you said something that, people are not paying attention to, something that is happening in the background. Margaret, is that true? Is it true that a lot of people, students inclusive maybe, are not bold enough to talk about the cry behind closed doors? Of course, we haven't talked about what really the cry is, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, so also thank you for inviting me to this podcast. It's quite an interesting and mind-capturing topic, something that really needs to be addressed. And yes, I think, yes, people don't really address this as much as it should be addressed. I mean, when you say a cry behind closed doors, is something that is, I relate it to maybe a pain that is not seen, a pain that is not heard, and probably maybe a pain that people try to quieten. Yes.
Okay. All right. When we look at the statistics, of course, when we narrow it down to Zambia, we we just get to realize that, for instance, in 2023, 3,214, cases of defilement were recorded, and that was in Lusaka alone. And over 3,000 cases are reported annually as far as defilement cases and rape cases are concerned. And in these cases, mostly the gender that is affected are females and all that. And I was just conducting a research, and I discovered that about 1,280 cases of defilement and rape were recorded at ADH. That is from 2012, about 2012 to 2016. So when we look at these statistics, and of course, statistics that we have not put in perspective on a global scale in Africa, we get to realize that really this is something that is happening in the background, and this is something that is big. And this is something that we really should be doing something about. And I like it that we're having this conversation as a foundation, as a podcast team, addressing this thing. And my question is to you, Mwiza. Are we doing enough as students? Are we doing enough as organizations out there? Are we doing enough as far as rape and defilement cases are concerned?
Okay, thank you. Before I answer your question, there is a quote that I would like to use that I learned from debaters. Men lie, women lie, but numbers don't lie. And looking at the statistics that you posed, these are facts that we can't hide from. These are things that have been observed, and it's an increasing epidemic that people are not paying much attention to. Your question is asking if students or organizations are putting much attention to it. I feel to some degree they are, but the measures that they're taking or the implementation strategies that are being used aren't as effective as we would expect them to be, because we are not voicing out ourselves appropriately and also looking at how culture plays an important role in everything we do. Social media will have an extent to or a limit on how far things can go, but what about us going out there physically, campaigning, having rallies, and seeing how best we can go about everything? Maybe if we take such an approach, we'd maybe see some change, but it's not promising again because everything is a gamble at this point. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much for that. And I think you are right. We really need to, take a step and go out there and do something about this. When I think about rape, defilement, gender-based violence, it's amazing how sensitive these cases are, because these are cases I think that have been in existence for decades, for centuries. Yeah, I think we cannot say that there was no one who was raped in 1700, 1500, 1000, because of how complex and delicate they are. All right, so coming to Maisha. Oh no, let me come to Mwiza on this one. In the statistics, we say that women are mostly affected.
Yeah.
And I think it doesn't even have to be. We don't even have to go to numbers for this one. When it comes to rape, defilement, you get to discover that the gender that is most affected are women. Of course, we're not sidelining men and all that, but are we really performing our role as men? We were just having a conversation earlier, and someone said women in Lesotho would dress in a certain kind of way, of course, which we might consider disrespectful here in Zambia, but it's because men are viewed as protectors and they view themselves as protectors. So are we missing that perspective, that kind of thinking in Zambia?
That's an interesting question.
And to top that, are you safe with the current, with your peers? Are you safe with your, the coming generation, which includes you?
I would say that's a gamble, because we all have different backgrounds, and I feel that plays an important factor in how one turns out to be. It's something that I also learned throughout my program, and that was in second year when we were learning on system thinking. So when you're raising up a child is a complex system, because you don't know the outcome of the child. You would expect or train a child to come out a certain way, but in the end, it's a gamble because you don't know the outcome of how the person will turn out to be. So looking at my peers, I don't know and I can't speak for everyone on how they would behave or act towards such issues. But on my end, yes, I would say I try to create a comfort haven for people that I know around me, because each person has to feel a self. Let me try and rephrase that or
Okay.
retract. Yes. So each person has to feel some sort of comfort or safety when they are with someone, because they know that things will be okay than them feeling uncomfortable, you know. And looking at how we're speaking on defilement, this also plays a role because we are people that have nephews, nieces, sisters. We have to be protectors towards them. It starts from there before you become parents or fathers in the near future.
Yeah.
It starts from there. How you treat those people will determine how you turn out to be in the near future. So it's something that you build into, and it's also a mental aspect that we need to train.
Yeah.
And if you develop that aspect, it helps you in the near future. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's very true, and we should think like that, especially as young men, because of course we are the stronger sex as far as strength is concerned.
True.
You know, you put me with a lady here, the one who's going to end up on the ground, most likely, unless she goes to the gym, but also but also that's not a guarantee, you know. But that should not give us the mindset that, you know, I can get what I want, I can do what I want. But that should give us the mindset to say, this strength that I have is for me to safeguard this person, to protect this person, you know. And coming to Maisha, you know, you are a mental health advocate. What do you think, you know, are the long-term effects? What are the repercussions of what happens, like, you know, of defilement, rape on the young people that are affected, you know? Because maybe an adult, they'll go for counseling, they'll go for, you know, they sit down with a psychologist and whatever, and they'll run them through. But here's a child who is 5 years old, 3 years old, 2 years old, 7 years old, and they're encountering this, you know, devastating event. What are the long-term effects, and how can we combat them? How can we help them? Like, how, you know, we have, here's a person who's listening to us, and they've seen this young girl go through this thing, and they're saying to themselves, how can I help this person? How can I help this child?
Okay, so I'll start on the long-term effects of what sexual violence or defilement or rape does to the victims, to the younger victims. Trauma. Um, the 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 victim will grow up in trauma if the issue is not addressed. So, for instance, in a place like in the rural areas, a young girl is raped. There are no counseling centers. Obviously, it's even sidelined. So, this person has to live with it. So, it's like baggage that is building up. And it might not be seen there and then, but in future we see that this victim, a girl or a boy who have traumatic tendencies, maybe their view of the opposite sex might change, or they might just be sad individuals, depressed all the time. Yeah, I think that's the long term effect. They grow up with mental instability. They grow up thinking that the world is not a safe place for them. They grow up always in fear of something happening or someone just popping up. You see them having traumatic episodes all the time and whatnot. And I think something that we can do is start counseling at a very young age. Like immediately something happens, you pick it up from there. You start the counseling from a very young age and follow it up until you are assured that they have dealt with it. Because if you let them live with the trauma and everything, you might just find someone commit suicide and everyone is like, oh, we don't know what killed them, they just committed suicide, like we don't know why they killed themselves. But these are things that we are putting on the side, we are not looking at these things. So I think counseling should be something that should be offered, I think, at every medical center, in even in the rural areas, because even the kids in the rural areas are especially most vulnerable to these defilement and rape. So if we start counseling at a young age, let them deal with it and just show them that as a community we are there for them, like we protect them, then I think, yeah, I think the problem can be eased down on them. Yeah.
Wow. Addressing the issue, sitting them down and starting, talking to them while they are young, because I like the fact that, you said it's a long-term effect, like trauma is one of those long-term effects. And sometimes when you don't deal with something and you live a long period of time for you to deal with it, it becomes difficult because it grows into other aspects of your life and begins to dictate how you make decisions, how you perceive things, and all that. And coming to you, Margaret, she's just talked about the effects of defilement and rape on these individuals, and mostly we are focused on, how can we prevent this, how can we stop this, but of course there are people in the background who've already gone through this, like she was saying, people who have been affected by this thing. So I want you to also, maybe give your say on what we can do to help these individuals, because I feel most of them die from inside. Yeah, it's very rare for someone to come and tell you these things. So how can we make ourselves a safe space for individuals that have gone through this devastating event? You being a peer educator, of course.
Okay, firstly, I think it starts from how we as people respond to cases that have to do with rape, defilement, because in as much as it could be someone posts about it, and then maybe if you as a person decide to maybe put a negative, maybe if you decide to like put down a negative comment on a particular post that has to do with rape and abuse, someone who is watching or someone who is reading that comment that has gone through rape or defilement is going to see themselves as someone who's being probably discriminated because of having gone through that experience. So creating a safe space should not only be about you embracing them physically, it also has to do with our responses on these social media platforms and whatnot. And also, in our various homes where we're coming from, you can try as much as possible to just um, talk to maybe your siblings. If you know something about it, talk to your siblings about it. Tell them um when they can say no. Teach them how to be assertive, how to speak up whenever something like that, or maybe someone portrays something that is uncomfortable towards them. Try to encourage them to speak up, to be assertive, and yeah, that's what I can say concerning this.
Wow, I like the aspect you've brought about of what we do with social media, And I think mostly as people will be like, people don't talk to me, they don't, bring their issues to me because, I don't know why. It's because of how we portray ourselves out there on social media, and it affects, because somebody's going to look at you and say, if this person has this view on this entire situation, I can't, obviously approach this person. And we've seen people approach another person because they said, I saw you say something, I saw you write something, I saw you comment something, and I feel you're the person I can talk to. I think that's very, very true. Mwiza, coming to you. Coming to you, looking at the aspect of you being in public health, as well as Aisha, of course. You being in public health, what can you enlighten us on as far as public health is concerned? Because I feel it's a very vast field, and there is how is public health playing a role in combating, and how can you play a role in combating this entire case?
Okay, thank you. So public health focuses on protecting the population's health. So if you look at the rising cases of defilement, it's mostly populations in rural areas that are facing such challenges because they don't have protective mechanisms like one-stop GBV centers, the police posts they have are inactive, and also looking at how this is a silent epidemic, as I earlier have been alluding to. It's important that as public health practitioners or scientists or people that are in the medical fraternity, we have to ensure that we promote health for people. We have to enable them to have their own control of their health, because there are some measures or implications that come with sexual defilement on a child, such as psychosocial measures like early childhood pregnancies. It can lead to mental health instabilities, causing people to kill themselves, can have anxiety attacks, as Maisha said, trauma. All those are measures that can be prevented if the right strategies are put in place, if we have the right protective mechanisms, if we sensitize communities, we go out there, we promote health. We have to enable people to have control over their own health, because gender is another aspect that we have to focus on. There has to be gender equity. We have to reduce the disparities or differences that people are facing in accessing such facilities, because if we don't work on that, it will keep on being something that will grow rampantly, and it will grow out of control to an extent where whatever measures are put in place, we'll be unable to control them because we failed to control the little that's happening. So if it becomes something that's normal to community or society, it will be hard for us to contain it. So it starts now with a small, maybe engaging community participation. You can have outreach programs. You can have sensitization programs at health facilities. There are youth centers, or there is something called the youth corner in some health facilities where youths come together, adolescents, they speak about such topics. You can have such topics being done maybe at the OPD department. You can have someone come and sensitize the parents that come there, any patient that comes there, because the knowledge that you impact them will have an imprint on them. They might not give you the attention that you want, but as long as you've conveyed your message, they'll hear one or two things and they'll learn from there. So it's those small measures that we can put in place that can help change something.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I like what you said, like, the small measures that we take. And we sometimes, especially us as students, we're here pursuing our academics and all that. We get to forget just how much of an inspiration we are to a lot of these young people back home, in society. When they look at us, they look at us and this is their dream. This is where they want to be. And I think we are not doing enough, as far as going out there, talking to them. Because I think if we try and ask ourselves some of our activities during our long vacations, you discover that it's movies. What do you call Naruto? Anime. These people, the people are going to kill me. People that are listening, you're like, don't touch anime, But you find that those are the activities that we're doing: watching movies, we're playing soccer, and there are things that are happening in our background. It's only when it happens in your house that you become now, okay, this is wrong, And I think we have a very huge part to play, because not only are we the coming leaders, because if at least level we are playing a blind eye to these things, even when we climb to certain key positions, we also play a blind eye. So I think it's important that every student that is listening, every young person that is listening, takes it upon themselves. I think most of the times we try to say, okay, the president, the ministry, the this, the that, but the president won't come and talk to your neighbor. They won't come and educate the man next door. Maybe he will, but the man won't watch the television and see that. It will be you and me who's next to the person. So we need to do our part and also let others do their part. Coming to Maisha, what is the role, of organizations, of the ministries and all that in combating defilement or rape? What do you think? I know things are being done, things are happening, but what do you think? You're like, I think at this point, I want you to be like that person who says, like, if it was me,
I would do this.
you get that, right? If it was me, I would go and slap them and say, wake up.
Wake up.
So, like, if it was you, in that organization, in that government ministry, what are some of the things you would do to combat this?
So I think if it was me, the president or the minister, I think I would make it a me problem. Like, it would be me. I would take it as if it has happened to me or it has happened to someone close to me. I think that's how everyone should take it, as a them problem and not just an outside problem or just something that you heard on the news and you saw online and you reacted with a sad emoji. It has to be a you problem, first of all. Then I think I would put more punishment on the culprits, maybe increase the punishment so that even someone who has an idea of maybe wanting to commit the crime would think about the punishment that comes with committing the crime and maybe be withheld. And then I'd also put more programs on counseling activities, especially for the victims, because I think the only thing that I've heard of is you go to the hospital, you check if you have any STIs, maybe they give you prep and whatnot, and that's it. But they don't look at the long term effect, like the mental aspect. They don't look at all of that. So I think maybe putting the victims into a counseling program would help. And yeah, how would I combat this is, like I said, increasing the punishment to the offenders and maybe raising more awareness, making it a people problem, not just an outside problem. Everyone needs to be involved in this. It needs to be out there in schools, in communities, sensitizing people. Like, it doesn't have to be something that's hidden. Like, it doesn't have to be behind closed doors. It has to be something that we're all comfortable enough to talk about, because if we're all comfortable to talk about it, then we'll be comfortable enough to bring up solutions. And yeah.
Wow. I think with that, this problem will be a thing of the past. I like the aspect of talking about it. It's amazing what a conversation can do. Talking about it. Let's create spaces, environments where we can talk about such issues. Especially us as young people. When we start talking about this, then eyebrows will be raised. There's a problem here. Margaret, if it were you, what would you do? If it was you, you go bomb them.
Okay. If it was me, I think like my colleague Aisha put it, increase the punishment for these people. I mean, they're practically committing murder because it has a long-term impact on someone's mental health, and there is nothing that can ever buy someone's healthy mental state. So yes, increase the punishment, even life imprisonment, guys. We can do that. Yeah. What else can I do? Um. Okay. So aside that, maybe on the victims aspect, if I can talk about that. Um, we can try and I can come up with probably programs in high schools, secondary schools to increase the amount of space or safety for these people, the victims that have gone through rape. You can try to come up with programs where we have Tuma clubs in school. You can come up with clubs that just promote openness, and you'll be able to get more in such settings where like it's just teenagers or young people who are there creating a safe space and like a table kind of setup where they just get to talk about anything. So yeah, that's one of the few things, two of the few things that I can do. Two of the few things that I can do.
I'm sure she hasn't mentioned those dangerous things because viewer discretion is advised. I like the point where she says going into the schools and bringing up clubs where we support openness. It's amazing that we have. It's only these numbers that we have recorded, but there are thousands more that haven't been recorded. And some of these kids, to some, it's become normal. They go to school, they go home, and things happen, and it's become part of life. But it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. And having that openness, they'll be like, oh, okay, I can talk to somebody about this, and they can be helped. We're coming to the end of the conversation shortly, but of course, Mwiza,
Yes.
earlier you talked about the problem tree that you learned from your or from your doc, from your lecturer, should I say?
Okay.
So yes, you run us through, connected to today's conversation, as a way in which you can provide solutions. Yeah, this is me putting you on the spot.
Okay, thank you. So a problem tree is used to identify problems in a setting. So any problem, it's a problem solving tool or technique that's usually used. So how it's structured is that the problem is the stem of a tree,
Mm-hmm.
the roots are the cause of the problem, and then the branches are the effects from the given problem. So in this case, the problem is defilement, right?
Mm-hmm.
The causes of defilement can be culture. That's like one of the major causes to this problem. Then we look at one of the effects to be mental health, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or trauma. Since mental health is broad, let's just put trauma. So if we want to tackle this, we can form an objective tree from the same,
Mm-hmm.
where we make the problem a goal. So our goal is to fight defilement or abolish it. I don't know what, or eradicate. Let's say eradicate.
Yes.
Eradicate sounds better. Eradicate defilement. The cause being in the previous one, culture, we can try and say that the objective for this would be to tackle cultural stereotypes or perceptions that have been put within our settings in the country. And then an effect would be a target on our end, since the effect of the defilement is trauma. So here the target is to fight whatever mental health problems or issues arise from the same goal that we put in place, that is eradication of defilement. So if we had such structures being put in place for many of the problems that we have, it would be easy for one to map and to track what they are doing, because there are various indicators that have been put in place. So you know how much resources you would need, the manpower, be it the physical human resource, yes, or the monetary human resource that would be needed for you to implement such issues. Yes, I think that's a summary of the tree.
Wow. You know, if there are intelligent and sharp students that are listening, even Maisha, he's obviously given a lot of people a research topic or research topics. You know, and I think you've summarized it in a very nice way, and I think this is an area that is wide and open for a lot of us to go and do a lot of research, because yes, we're going to talk about it, we're going to do all these things, but for us, you know, in this setting, medical students, students in health, because this is, you know, a health problem. This is an area where we can dive into and see how we can now go to these offices and say, this is what we found, these are the effects, and this is what should be done. And yeah, what a conversation we've had. Any advice to a child who may have stumbled on this podcast and they've gone through this traumatizing event or this traumatizing, issue? What advice would you give them, Maisha? What 3 pieces of advice would you give them?
Okay. Firstly, if there's a child that has undergone or has been defiled or raped and is listening to this podcast, maybe you haven't reported yet. Maybe it's just something that you've held on to. I encourage you, first of all, to speak up. If you can't speak up to the people who are your guardians or your parents, you can reach out to even us, because we'll be able to assist in whatever way possible and maybe connect you to people who can even help you. So the first thing is speak up about what has happened to you, and the second thing is, I think, address it. You can't just bury it and say, no, it happened. No, like, it has long-term effects. The effects might not be visible. Maybe it might not have been something, maybe it might not have been pregnancy or STIs, but looking at the mental health status, it did something to you that you've just pushed it under the carpet. So I think you first have to address it as a person who's gone through this. Address it, be honest with yourself. How did it make you feel? How do you see things after everything happened? And the third thing is, ask for help. There are so many people who are willing to help people who have undergone these things. So I think just ask for help. There's at hospitals, I think there are counseling services. Go there, or maybe go to your teacher, because I remember in high school we had a guardian office or something like that. Go to them, tell them what happened to you. I'm pretty sure they'll be more than willing to help.
but just speak up. Contact anyone who you think can be a safe space for you, and just don't let it eat you up alone. Don't address it alone, because it's going to come back when you're older. Maybe not now, but when you're older and you see the long term effects. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. Margaret, this is you as a peer educator educating your peers, giving them three things that, just like Maisha was talking to this young child who's been affected and giving them advice. What's your advice to your peers, to people like us, people that should be guardians or should be protectors? What three things can you tell them?
Okay, so this one is specifically for the guardians. Okay, so first things first is let's teach our children, whoever we are keeping in our homes, what unsafe what unsafe behavior towards them is. Also teach them what it means when someone is impinging on your rights. Teach them also how to be assertive, when to say no, when to say yes. And also in our Zambian home, like our setups where respect is like a very, very big thing. Teach them what respect really is, because respect is not always about saying yes to everything that an elderly asks you to do. Teach them when to say no and how to tell the difference between respect and someone impinging on your rights. Also, create an open space, of course, for them. If they want to talk about anything, they should be free to talk about anything with you. There should never be boundaries, or you shouldn't make them feel judged, or make them feel as though they're being exposed to so many things, because I feel like in Zambian setups we have this tendency of making someone feel like whenever they talk about something sensitive, they're being disrespectful or something. So yes, try and do those three things. That's what I would say to a guardian.
All right. Thank you so much for that. Mwiza is looking at me with that eye, like, what about me? Mwiza, what's your word to men?
Okay, so to men, there is something I came across and I think I'll just quote it. Okay. So, a quote that we should remember as men is that children do not lie about pain. Children don't lie about pain, so it's best we believe them. When a child says they're in pain, it means they really are in pain. So if they experience such an outrageous event of defilement, if they say they're in pain, they're not okay, they open up to you, believe them. Secondly, we must learn to support them. And lastly, we must also be protective, protect them. That's one. These are the three things that we should stand on as men. We should believe them, we should support them, and protect them.
Every man out there should believe, support, and protect the other gender. Yeah, I think what a way to wrap it up. I believe we've had a very productive conversation, and you who's listening to us right now has been able to learn one or two things. But the whole purpose of this conversation was to push us towards something, to push us towards action. And so I'm sure you've been able to see the direction of the conversation, that we are looking at what we can do, because I think we all know that what the problem is, and like we established in the beginning, this is a problem that has existed for a long time. And so I believe we should be able to act and really do what has been discussed. And it's been your host, John Glory. If you haven't yet subscribed to our channel, That is our YouTube channel. You can search for the A Plus Student Foundation. You will find our playlist of podcasts, our podcast playlist, and you'll find all the episodes, all the 8 episodes before this one. And of course,